I, Paul Diffley, hereby reconvene the Board of Education special meeting in open session at 5:07. I apologize for the 7 minutes. We weren't doing silly things. It was important, but I apologize anyhow. Please note that this meeting is both being recorded and live streamed for public viewing. We have a quorum present with all members in attendance. I'd like to welcome the community members in attendance this evening. As a reminder, governing board meetings are a business meeting of the board held in public. And although public participation is encouraged, it's not the public's meeting. It is the duty of the board president and/or clerk of the board to maintain an orderly, respectful, and peaceful meeting where all perspectives, voices, and opinions are welcome. Please refrain from speaking out while another person has the floor. At the appropriate time on the agenda, individuals wishing to provide public comment on items appearing on the agenda will be called upon one at a time to do so in accordance with Board Bylaw 9323. The board cannot and will not respond to non-agendized items, but a staff member will reach out to you on matters that may need to be reviewed as appropriate. Reporting out from closed session. The board met in closed session and took action to approve a purchase and sale agreement for 8.84 acres of property being considered for operation of the district's early childhood education programs. Key terms of the purchase and sales agreement include the following. The sellers are Promise Lutheran Church, Inc. The site location is 25664 Madison Avenue. The purchase price is $9.315 million. Contingencies to closing include a due diligence review period of 120 days to allow the district to conduct site investigations and compliance with regulatory requirements for childhood education centers, unquote. Mr. Perdue, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doesn't that make you feel good? You get to do it not so often as adults, but there we do it, and that it's exciting to me. Approval of the agenda. This calls for a motion.
Parliamentary point of order.
Yes, sir.
I had emailed you on July 2nd regarding 3 issues. One is our unfunded TK classrooms, LCAP funding gap, something I had brought up at a board meeting before, and how we could conceivably recap that money. I also requested that we add the Liberty Justice Center legal counsel to join our team with regards to AB 1955 to protect parental rights. I also asked that we review board policy regarding classroom disruptions and safeguarding teachers and students in light of SB 274. According to board policy, not putting that on the agenda has violated our board policy. Request shall be submitted in writing, which it was, at least 1 week before scheduled meeting date, which it was. The board president, superintendent shall decide whether a request from a member of the public is within subject matter, but a board member, this should definitively be on the agenda. And additionally, I got no response, another board policy or regulation 9005.1A. All board members are to be apprised in a timely manner of any incident to which they may be called upon to answer or explain. I wasn't notified at all that you were going to remove this. In fact, I got an email from you on 7/12/24. I look forward to a robust discussion on the 23rd. Additionally, on Press Enterprise on 7/18/24, you were quoted as saying, Paul Diffley, President of MVSU, said there would be a discussion on joining Chino Valley's lawsuit. And then it was removed without notification, without any kind of, and that's a violation of our board policy. I'd like a consensus vote to add that discussion to our agenda.
All right, should we have a vote?
I don't believe we're able to add things to the agenda on the day of the meeting. It could be added to another agenda.
Mr. Parr, you've made a motion, so it would require a second. And then
I
a
would
vote.
move at minimum to add the parent notification of Liberty Justice Law Center as stated by President Paul Diffley publicly and personally to be added in regards in light of violating the board policy on setting agenda items. I actually looked at the board policy. With a consensus vote, it can be added. A consensus would require all of us to vote. So Linda, you of course could not. You could do whatever you want to do.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this is for Liberty.
Liberty Justice to have a discussion for the parental rights issue and to add to,
So that's
as it
three-
was stated.
three
I
to
have it
two.
in front of me here.
So do you have
Sorry,
to vote?
I have the language right here.
We have to vote still.
Add Liberty Justice Center to legal counsel and joint legal action to oppose AB 1955, which destroys parental rights. I'd asked that to be a discussion and action item, and it was not granted.
So there's been a first and a second, and you called for affirmative vote.
That was two.
So you would need to hear the opposed vote.
Okay, opposed?
I'm opposed, so I'm a no.
2 noes. Motion is passed.
But I'm sorry,
But
Mr.
not
Diffley,
you.
you need to clarify. Are you a yes vote to add the discussion today or a no vote to add the discussion?
We all need to add our voice to this, yes.
Yes, vote.
So to be clear, you voted yes to his motion to add a discussion to today's agenda.
If that is correct.
Is that legal to,
Is it legal?
yeah, I did not think it
Well,
was
we're
legal.
discussing that right
You're
now, right?
interrupting me.
Let's not do this. So just-
Okay, according to board policy, I will confirm what I understand. In order for it to be added to the agenda, all 5 of us have to agree. Just by the fact that Nancy said no means it will not be on the agenda. But we all have to vote. That requires a vote from all 5 of us to say yes or no to adding it to the agenda. That's all it's requiring.
So there were 2 no votes and 3 yes votes, but that's not all.
I have not, I said yes.
Okay, I'm yes to add it.
We both said
Well,
yes. The
everyone
3
needs
of you
to-
I've not heard from yet,
Yeah.
except for Nancy. Sorry,
I
Nancy.
say no.
I say yes.
I say no.
Motion passed 3-2.
No, motion was
Motion,
Fail.
fails.
Failed.
because it would need all
And-
5 of you
Oh, that's
to
right.
agree.
So can we read the part in the board policy that governs this? Would that be okay to do?
Say again?
Can we, I'm not familiar with the board policy that governs this. Can we read this now since we're in a business meeting and we're making a decision?
We already made the decision.
Well,
I would just like to read
The
the board
agenda,
policy.
the agenda item that President Diffley did not add the agenda items as requested by a board member. And that violation allows us to challenge it. Now, I only printed out the part which allows us to, that I wanted to call out to the fact that it was not added and it violated our board policy. And I wanted to make sure that the public understood why, because I have so many public members who were expecting for us to discuss the parental rights issue and what's happening with the lawsuit that Chino Valley has enjoined. And the expectation was that we were going to join that as well, or at least have the conversation regarding that. And when it was not added to the agenda, the public was upset by that. And I also noted that we should have been notified of that. There should be no surprises, and that's just kind of part of our procedures, right? So I just wanted the public to know. I wanted people to be on record to have voted for or against parental rights, and I think that's all.
I must say personally, I apologize for it not being on the agenda because I just finished my research last night. It was too late to put it on. It took some time. That's my error.
How do we remedy, because there were three things that you asked to put on there, so how do we remedy that?
I
according
did
to
get
board policy?
Dr. Andrus did reply that he wanted his staff to discuss more about how we were going to deal with discipline issues in light of the SB, no, I lost my paper.
I think it was 297, I think.
274.
Oh,
SB 274, which essentially allows students to tell off teachers without very much accountability, and it's going to be a change. And so I'm wondering how the district's prepared for that. And I thought, as a board, we could discuss it. I'm sure parents are concerned. I hope teachers are concerned that that's a new change. Additionally, I had stated publicly that our TK classrooms are unfunded, mandate by the state, and that we should be at least discussing what legal actions we have. All three of those things were declined without much conversation or discussion, and you had a month to decide. Additionally, those things were brought up in the board meeting in June, which we've had over a month and a half to decide. My concern is the public is under the impression that all the board funding, we could have a 3-2 vote, and I think the public's none aware of that. We could vote 3-2 for a bond. We could. But apparently, we're not doing it that way. So I just want to make sure the public understands the options that we have, and we have the discussion. And we're not having those discussions. And I think it's wrong to leave these things off the agenda. And additionally, we should have had the agenda items for next week should be on tonight. There's no need for an emergency. There is no emergency. We've had a month and a half to figure out what we want to do in the next 3 board meetings, and we have but we didn't seem to think that was important. And so we need to be transparent with the public, and I don't think we're doing that with our agendas. And I think there's a lot of manipulation going on, and we're fear-mongering the public. I've seen a number of posts. Some posts have been taken down, lots of back and forth conversations. There's so much rumor going on about what's happening. Not one person's reached out to me to talk to me directly. Not one board member concerned about my vote reached out to me. And another board policy was that we wouldn't, each member of the team is to be treated with dignity and respect. That didn't happen at the end of the last board meeting. Hasn't happened since. And there's just no civil conversation whatsoever. And I think that's a big part of why they don't go for the 2/3 is because they know that the public is upset. They're upset about some of the things that are happening at the school board. And instead of having an open dialogue with an elected representative, we're name calling and trashing people online and acting like children and then leaving things off the agenda. And I think it's completely unacceptable and unprofessional. And so I want to make sure my voice was heard.
Thank you for your comments.
I have a comment. So are we kind of in the midst of, what did you call it, a parliamentary? So we're in a process right now to decide how to remedy this, but I would like to say.
Parliamentary point of order.
Parliamentary point of order, thank you. So yeah, I want to chime in there about some of the things you mentioned because this is a business meeting of the board. And it just seems like so many issues that we discuss, there's not a full discussion. You know, I've been gavelled before for wanting to continue discussion. And actually what happened at the end of closed session today is another example of how we do not operate in a business-like manner. You know, if I say I would like a little time to read something without anyone talking, well, then I'm chastised because I don't read fast enough or something like that. So yeah, I just feel like for having a business meeting of the board, we are not being very businesslike. I mean, we've got, reams of documents that we're supposed to be paying attention to. And we just give short shrift to so many things. And it's almost like the culture of the board, you are shamed if you want to take a deeper look. So yeah, I would like to know how to remedy this very simple situation where a board member followed board policy to put something on the agenda and it didn't happen. So now what? So how do we remedy that in a business-like way?
So let me just add, because the comment in my direction from the board president was, It wasn't, they weren't scheduled for this meeting, but they'd be scheduled for a future meeting. A couple of the items needed additional work before they could be scheduled, but they will eventually be scheduled. And we hope to actually have them scheduled in the month of August, specifically the ones you were asking about.
I think moving forward, though, it's important to know that it should at least be on the agenda as a discussion item. I don't think there's ever a reason why any of us who have a concern that we can't at least discuss it and we could say, and have the rational conversation out here in public. But I think the public expects us to address these issues. And when they come out to the meeting, they want to hear us have that conversation so that they're at least informed, hopefully to have a rational conversation with their other friends and neighbors. And they've heard us have the conversation about the issues at hand, instead of burying it, saying, hey, I need more time to come up with some fancy report. And that's exactly how our board policy reads. So when Dr. Anders said, it depends on what our board policy says, I picked up the board policy, I read it. It should be on the agenda. It was not. And going forward, these things should stay on the agenda and we should have the discussion at minimum.
Any other comments? Mrs. Vandegrift, the meeting with the staff just now in that room took up more time than we had thought it would. There is no way that we could have gone through, and I urge you to go through it. There's no way to go through that in 5 minutes.
That's my point. That is my point exactly.
So what was the resolution of that?
Well, I'm not displeased with the resolution. I'm displeased with the conduct of the board members where if you want to spend a little time looking, well, that is apparently, that's not showing enough trust in the staff apparently, or I don't speed read or something like that. That was were the comments that were made, very unprofessional, unbusinesslike, and there's always this undercurrent of how dare you, uppity little person, looking into anything deeply, So I would just like to say it's all part of the same pattern where someone goes according to board policy to put something on the agenda. Somebody wants to actually look at documents that they're given to see for the first time. And I just say it's a culture issue on this board where some people do not want to allow every board member to ask the questions that maybe they feel should be asked for the benefit of the people we represent.
Okay, I think basically we're moving forward. Let's get through this meeting, and then moving forward, we will follow board policy, and we will all agree to try to be more professional in how we conduct our business.
Well, I guess I want to know, so these 3 things that didn't make it on the agenda, what are we saying about those?
But they'll have to be put on future agendas.
They will be,
on-
because an appropriate request was made. So we'll be, and as soon as I can counsel with staff and President Diffley, we'll get the dates to you, and we can also make those public.
Right, because I think in my email, I was saying, with regard to discipline, because I know you were worried about doing a presentation, I'm more interested in I think we talked in the meeting.
We did talk
We'll figure it
yesterday.
out. Let's move on with the meeting, though.
Thank you.
I think we understand.
Okay. Item E,
No, we're still on D3.
D4.
Approve the agenda.
Oh. Approval of the agenda. Calls for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. D4, public comment regarding meeting agenda items. Please note that this is a special board meeting, and public comments can only speak to the items listed on the agenda. Speakers attempting to speak on topics not listed on the agenda will be stopped and asked to return to their seats. Thanks. E, consent calendar. Consent calendar
Were there
items.
any comments? Any comment
I
cards?
don't have any comment cards.
No comment cards. Thank you.
No comment cards. E, consent calendar. Consent calendar items are voted on collectively as a group. Upon board member request, items may be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and individual action. Item, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar items E1 and E2 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Moving on to F, action information items. Approval of the personnel report. This calls for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. F2, assignment of middle school teacher to teach in a departmentalized classroom pursuant to Educational Code 44258.2 for the 2024-2025 school year. This calls for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Departmentalized, can you just describe to me what the situation here requiring this?
Rich, do you want to add some detail to that, please? Mr. Rideout.
All right, I think I got this actually. So when we're talking about departmentalized, this is really just saying that this person has a specific number of units in order to be allowed to teach that specific course. In this situation, I believe it's an art course.
Okay. Are you saying that the person does not have an art degree in order to be able to teach art?
Their primary credential is not art. However, they do have the background and units that they require in order to teach one specific art course.
Out of curiosity, what could we add that detail so that, because we're not going to know. I don't know. Is that too much?
It's kind of unique because the codes require that we place it on the agenda when it's somebody in this situation. So that's why you'll see things. Anytime you see something like a variable term waiver, it's that type of situation where someone might teach one specific course, but they do have the background and the units to teach it. They just don't, it's not their primary credential from the state of California.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing as a supplemental credential, or is it a little bit less
Very similar.
similar?
Pretty much the
Okay.
same kind of context in terms of qualifying somebody to teach a specific course.
Now, is that ongoing with that particular person?
We would have to redo it each year, I believe.
Each year.
If that person teaches art again next year, for example, I believe we would have to bring it for board approval again.
Also, in some of these situations, sometimes it's once or twice, and then the person is pursuing a credential, and then they round it off, and then it never happens again for that individual.
I was just this would include a single subject teacher, let's say a high school teacher coming down into a class that's multi-subject. Would that be
Correct.
subject to?
Or it also, since our junior highs are 6, 7, 8, you have that whole 6th grade aspect there too. So
All right. Thank you so much.
you got it.
Any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. F3, approval of variable term waiver request per Education Code 44270, waiving the administrative services credential for Morgan Quick. This calls for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. F4, authorization for speech pathologist to be employed under Education Code 44831 for the 2024-25 school year. This calls for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We've gotten through that fast, haven't
I think we're done.
we? Yeah. I call for a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 5:31 p.m.
Can I have a point of order before we?
Certainly.
I just want to say, our time is valuable, and I would appreciate not having special meetings on top of special meetings. I've seen other districts do this, and it's really a bad look. We have so much time left over here, and the items that you have, those aren't new items. I know some people think those are brand new items. Those are not new items talking about the need to redistrict. And we knew this 3 months ago and it could have been added to this agenda, and we have plenty of time to discuss it. But instead, as we've read online from multiple sources, that we're going to bring in the world to come and discuss and panic over what's going on with our district to try to push the bond issue. And I think it's disingenuous to do it. It's a waste of our time, and it's misleading to the public. This could easily be accomplished in the August 8th, so I would humbly request that you cancel that special meeting and add that to the agenda item in our regularly scheduled meetings, because we had all day to discuss that today. Plenty of time. This is the earliest I've ever gotten out of a board meeting. I'm just letting you know, and I guess you guys can discuss that on the side, but I want to make sure that for the record and so the public understands what's happening, I want you to know why we have a special board meeting coming a week from today, apparently, so we can grandstand about bond issues. And
Are you, oh, I'm sorry.
the last thing I will add is we could vote for the bond, 3-2 vote. We could do it the next board. You could add that to the agenda. We could all come in and vote for it. I don't think that our district wants to do that.
Is that true?
Can you maybe discuss more about that, how that works?
Yeah, I would like to know how that would be possible.
Dr. Andrews, would you like to expand on
I
that?
mean, I know how it works, but I'd like to hear it.
I would need to do some checking, but my understanding is prior to Prop 39, bonds were on a 2/3 vote. Required 67% or 67.7, I don't know the exact number, to pass a bond. That changed a couple decades back.
1,000.
Thank you. So 24 years ago, to, with the passage, was it Prop 39? Yep. To 55% plus one with some additional accountabilities. Most districts opt for that because the threshold to pass a bond is much more achievable. When we did our polling for this current bond self-study, our polling came in at about 63%. So it was a clear indication to strive for the 55%, the lower Prop 39 model, as opposed to something higher. That was the recommendation that we received from our consultants. So that's why it was proposed the way it was.
So the point that I'm making that I think was a little muddled in the response is that because there's not overwhelming public support for the bond, the district chose to go for the model that only requires 55% of the vote.
No, the
because we're
polls
polling.
Showed it, 63% of the public supported the bond. So I thought it was actually higher than that. But, yeah, I thought it was more like
So to your
67.
point, we'll gather some clarification from our bond attorneys to see what the options are.
So the public knows we're not taking away your vote. You have every right to have a vote. You don't need my vote or Julie's vote to put this on the next election. So have at it. You definitely have a vote.
We'll see.
If that is true, we should. have another
Additionally,
vote.
it is an election year. And one of the greatest things, we have a representative government. I represent constituents. My constituents speak to me. I try to speak to them. I get a lot of feedback, had a lot of feedback actually in the last month and a half from a variety of sources, not just a concerted effort by one group of partisans. The point that I'm making is the district even recognizes that there are voices who are against the bond. I'm not alone. So as a district, we have to be aware of those voices, and we have to be able to act like a community and come to a compromise so that we can all agree on it. So instead of spending a month and a half attacking the people who voted against it, not one person, I wanted to keep in mind, not one person said, gee, Mr. Pardue, why did you do that? With the true intention of actually wanting to hear it, because that's not what's happening. So like I've said, for over a year, we have to act like a community if you want that lower threshold. Right? I am not going to put my name to that bond because my constituents will believe that I support it. That's why I didn't put my name to it. Now, with that being said, you can still put it on the ballot. It's just going to be a higher bar. But you all believe you have that bar. Then you go ahead and make it happen. You have the option. The people can vote.
Any other comments? So you will, you'll check that out. Great. Because that would be new information. And I don't feel a bit bad that we did what we did in terms of the knowledge that we had.
I would like to interject here that the knowledge would have been there if we had had a more business-like meeting with open discussion.
I would like to add that Julie brought it up in the last board meeting, and not to mention, a lot was discussed in the last board meeting and was completely and utterly ignored.
Well, that's fine. Thank you for your comments. We'll look it up. The superintendent will look it up, and we will give you chapter and verse and figures. Any other comments? I call for a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 5:38.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, adjourned.